Welcome to the Dana Grant Show, where heart-centered stories, authentic connections, real talk, and real action come together. I'm your host, Dana Grant. I'm a life coach, speaker, and believer in the boundless power within every one of us. Each week, we're diving into raw, transformative conversations that not only spark healing, but growth and unshakable clarity. Because you know what? Your story matters. Your voice deserves to be heard, and your purpose is waiting to be fully lived. You're in the right place. Let's begin. Welcome back to the Dana Grant Show, where I have a special guest in the house today. I was hoping that the Tambo would be here, but we have his handler, someone incredibly special in the house today, a federal law enforcement officer, Chris Bingham, whose lessons in leadership in life after 24 years of being a leader in law enforcement and special agents, but by his dog, Tambo. And I said yes. I never say yes until I get to meet someone. But when I read this story, I was all in. And I can't wait for the Netflix series. So I want to welcome Chris to the show. And I just asked him, I wish Tambo was here, but you know, he's here in spirit with us today. He's usually
That's
sitting right
right.
behind you. Hey,
That's
welcome,
right.
Chris.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Dana.
You know, I love the fact that we were just talking about what inspired you to write this, what that will be a series, but the children's book that is K9 Tambo. And
Hmm.
what inspired, let's go back. Let's take you back to your early years. You had a couple of dogs in service with you,
Yep.
and then you come to meeting Tambo. And this is where the story really unfolds for you, where life really, would you say life just kind of opens up emotionally a little bit more?
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer that, things in life happen for a reason. And I know that, how Tambo, the chance how Tambo and I came together was meant to be, especially how this story has unfolded, over the last couple of years. It's been truly amazing.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's just dive right in. You told me the story of how you met this handler and what you do and what this dog did prior to you. Let's go there and then how you met him.
Yeah, so I started early on our K9 unit in my early 20s. I had a mentor that took a chance on me, a young kid in his 20s. I got my first dog. I worked for 7 years. His name was Rex, and then retired him, and I got my second dog, Tina, and worked her for about 5 years, and
Mhm.
then they both they both retired. I took on some other leadership positions. I was content with my K9 career at the time,
Mhm.
and then within a year of each other, both of them got cancer in retirement, and unfortunately, passed away. And I think any handler, anyone that's had a pet or especially a canine handler knows when you say goodbye to a partner like that, it takes a piece of your soul. So I at
Yeah.
that point, I said I could never go back to canine again, not because it wasn't my passion, just because of the pain that I felt of saying goodbye to these partners. But
Right.
it called me back, Dana, and my mentor was now in a higher up position when I came back to the area, and he asked me to put in for a K9 commander position, which I did, and was selected for it. And then initially they weren't going to give me a dog because they said I was going to be too busy in the position. And I started thinking about it because a few days after my mentor selected me, he unfortunately passed away from a
Right.
heart attack, and it
Yeah.
really I really got a sense of depression from that. And I started thinking the one thing that always got me through the hard times in life was having those partners with me, that security blanket, that silent presence that doesn't leave your side. And I knew right then and there that I needed to have another dog. So
Right.
basically I went back and forth with my current boss and said, "Hey, I want a dog." And they're like, "No, you're going to be too busy." And we went back and forth for a year. And finally, I wore on her a little bit, but she said, "Okay, here's the deal. If you want a dog, you have to take Tambo." And the story on him was, he was on our unit, went through a couple other handlers. He was never aggressive, but just couldn't bond with anybody. He was kind of
Mhm.
guarded, aloof. And, when handlers come on, they want that instant bond. And that Tambo wasn't
Right.
giving anybody that. And so I was a little hesitant at first, but then, I wanted to lead from the front again and have that dog with me. So I said, I told her I would take him. And it's funny because we were talking before. I went up there that Monday, and I go up to the kennel and I'm looking at this dog and I see all the labels he has of, guarded, aloof, stubborn. And I'm looking at him and he's looking at me. And then I realized something, Dana. I was looking in a mirror of myself. Those are all the same labels that I
Yeah.
grew up with, which was crazy.
Yeah. We were talking earlier how you did grow up with a father figure. And then when you lost that commanding officer, the depression kicked in because that he actually gave you that support. And then here comes Tambo back in your life. And
Yeah,
did you know immediately? Did you guys, when you had that connection, did you just like, no, this is my dog?
Yes, I knew right then and there that this was something higher, bringing us together.
Yeah.
And you kind of touched on it. My dad left when I was a baby. So I always
Yeah.
said that, I lost my best friend before I even got to know him. And,
Mm.
I kind of grew up with that armor of putting that guard up and stuff like that. And I saw that same thing in Tambo, which he had for whatever reason. And just like my mentor took a chance on me when he selected me for K9, I think Tambo just needed someone to take a chance on him, and I felt like it was kind of a full circle moment for me to do that for Tambo.
And you and Tambo actually did two inaugurations, presidential election together. You
Yeah.
did you I mean, you guys went the full gamut. So I guess you bonded and there wasn't any more aloof behavior.
No, and it wasn't instant, but the one thing it's kind of like with me, like you have this exterior armor growing up, and you're guarded, and
Yeah.
because sometimes when you grow up without a dad, you feel like you're never good enough, and
Yeah.
it takes time for people to earn that trust. And so I kind of knew what I needed to do. I just needed to give him a good routine and give him trust in me. And I went in every day. I didn't take him home right away. Went in, fed him his breakfast at 5 a.m., took him out, and I built that trust in him. But once I got it, we were rocking and
Mm.
rolling. Like I said, we did, two presidential inaugurations. We had over 10,000 detection sweeps, 500 calls for service. And we worked,
Wow.
a full 7 years together and had this amazing career. And if somebody would have told me when I, came back to the unit that my strongest bond would have been with this dog Tambo, who,
Right.
before I took him, we were like two passing ships on the night on the unit. I would
Yeah.
have I would have said you were crazy, but it
Right.
was meant to be.
Oh, my heart just expanded over that. It's like, okay, now I know a little bit about that when Tambo retired, what came, he got sick. He got,
Yeah. So this dog, went from being the dog that nobody wanted, and then we had this great career, and then after his retirement, he tore both of his ACLs at the same time,
right.
and completely destroyed his mobility. And that's when Project K9 Hero first came into our lives. And for people that aren't aware about them, they're a national nonprofit that fund full medical care for retired police and working dogs that have
Wow.
significant health issues. So I had met Jason Johnson, the founder, a couple of years earlier at a canine conference. So I called him up, and he got Tambo right in the program, and they funded his TPLO surgery for his ACL, which was $7,500 for the first surgery right off the bat. And Tambo made a full recovery where he didn't have to get the other knee done. But after that, I wanted to really give back to the program, so we became an ambassador for Project Canine Hero, and we did a lot of events. What highlight is we did like the Orioles, Baltimore Orioles, and then Tambo got honored on his 11th birthday by the Philadelphia Phillies, which was awesome because I got to have
Wow.
my son there,
Yeah.
and that was a great bonding moment with my son. And they put him up on the big screen and wished him happy birthday. And life was good until this day in July when everything kind of changed, like, as you said it, when he got sick.
Yeah. So let's go there. Let's go to July. Any other day, you wake
Hmm.
up and walk me through that. What happened? What was your first alert that things are not okay?
So Tambo's a creature of habit. So even in retirement, he had been retired for a couple years at that point. And the funny thing is he still tries to come to work with me to this day. That
Mm.
hasn't changed. So I got up. It was a normal morning. I fed him his breakfast at 5 a.m. like he likes, and he
Yeah.
tried to leave the house with me. And I just said, "All right, buddy, you're not coming today," just like I do every other day. And he goes back to sleep, and everything was fine. I went to work. But then something weird happened, Dana. I started getting like palpitations at work, and I was sweating, and I thought,
Mm.
like, it's like, what is wrong with me? Because I never felt that way, and I never leave work early. So I
Yeah.
told them, hey, I need to go home. I'm not feeling well. So um, I drove home, and I was going to go in and go lay down, and I walked in, and instantly the energy was different. And Tambo usually greets me at the door, and he was nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
So I called his name. I didn't hear him. And then I walked in the dining room, and I found him sprawled out. There was vomit. His gums were very pale, which is indicative of blood loss. And he couldn't stand on his feet. And so I wasn't sure what was wrong, but I knew it was a life or death situation. So,
Right.
I carried him to the car. I drove him to the emergency vet, and they took him back and right away, and they came out and said, look, we just did an ultrasound. His he had a mass rupture on his spleen, and he's in the process of bleeding out. If you would have got him in here an hour later, he would have bled out and died. So something a higher thing was telling me to come home that day,
Oh,
and
yeah.
which I did.
Yeah.
And then they said, look, also his spleen is absolutely covered in masses, and we're pretty sure it's cancer.
Mm.
um do you it might be best to let him go right here peacefully. And at
Mm.
that point, Dana, I'm looking at Tambo, and he's looking at me, and I was so bonded with this dog, with everything we had been through, and he was telling me he wasn't ready. With
Right.
his eyes, I always say the eyes are the window to the soul, and he was telling me, Dad, I'm not ready to go. Please don't let
Yeah.
me go. So I called Jason up from Project K9 Hero, and they give me a quote. Hey, if you want to go through his surgery, we need to remove his spleen, and we need to give him a blood transfusion, and that's going to cost anywhere from $9,000 to $12,000. So I called Jason up from Project K9 Hero, and it was simple. He said, Chris, what do you want to do? And I said, Jay, he's not ready. He's telling me he's not ready, and he said, we got your back 100%. We'll fund it. So which was amazing. So I told them, hey, he's not ready. I want to go through with it. And they're like, okay, just understand that this is 50-50 if he makes it through the surgery. And I said, I know this
Mm.
dog, and I know his heart, and I want to go through with it. He's not ready to go. So
Yeah.
um, I went to the back, and because I had to leave while they did the surgery, and I
Mm.
just said my goodbyes just in case. And it's funny because the first time in my life I saw fear in this dog's eyes, a very stoic dog, and I was starting to get emotional, but I had to stop myself because I thought about it. Because for 7 years when we worked, he had been there for me through my darkest times, through the hardest times, and been that silent present. And at that point, I said, it's my time to be there for him. So I had
Right.
to be calm, and I said, buddy, Dad's here. I got you. You're going to be fine. And I could see the calm come over him, and they were able to get him back because his blood pressure was starting to tank. So
Oh,
I, I had to
okay.
leave,
Okay.
and
That's a lot. That's a
I know
lot. I'm gonna
I
cry,
had
but that's a lot.
yeah.
Yeah, I
So
could, I'm feeling it. I'm walking it. It's like, wow. Yeah.
so I left, and then I had to wait on pins and needles for them to call me. So they call me up about 40 minutes later, and they say, Chris, we got him opened up, and are you sure you want us to go through with this? Hit when they say his mass, I mean his
Yeah.
spleen is covered in what it looks
Mm.
like cancer masses, and from what we can feel, we feel like there's cancer on the liver as well. This is not good. And I said, I want to go through with it. He's not ready. And they're like, okay. And so he got through the surgery, and then they said, he may not. The next 24 hours are going to be critical because he may not make it through the recovery. Well, the next day, Dana, he was up and he was eating. And I remember going to see him that morning, and it's funny because he came in, and we just sat together. We didn't talk, and it was just because no words needed to be spoken. And he laid his head on me, and he was just thanking me for believing in him,
I
and
believe it.
and get and giving him life. And we sat together for an
Yeah.
hour, and we barely talked to each other. But with these dogs, it's that unspoken bond that you don't really need to sometimes sometimes talk. And
Yeah.
so I was able to bring him home the next day, and then from there they told me, The biopsy came back and they said they confirmed it as cancer, and it was a cancer called hemangiosarcoma. So
Mm,
for anyone that's not familiar with that, it's called the silent killer in dogs.
yeah.
It's a very aggressive and fatal cancer. And what happens is these blood masses form on the spleen and the liver, and they rupture, and it usually kills the dog where they bleed out. So they told me from there, hey, he's probably got 14 days to live, and but if you want to go see oncology, you can. So I did my research, and I got an appointment in Pennsylvania. I'm in Maryland, and I got an appointment right outside of Philadelphia at a Blue Pearl Hospital in Malvern, Pennsylvania, which has a good oncology department. So we got Tambo over there, and we sat down and had a conversation. And she said, "Look, if this cancer is on the liver, there's not much that we can do, but we'll do an ultrasound and we'll check because they biopsied the spleen, but they were feeling the liver, so they thought the cancer
Right.
was on the liver. But when they came back, she said." It looks like what they were feeling were only cysts, and there is no cancer on the liver, so we can start chemotherapy, which was a huge relief. And then I called Jason up again, and chemo was going to be $700, and they wanted to do chemo once every 2 weeks for 5 sessions, and we
Yeah.
started we started chemotherapy that day.
Yeah. Oh, as we talked about before the show started, I've been through this. I know what that feels like when you go so far and you love a dog so much. How can you not do everything you can to save
Yes.
them? I often think, they say in court that dogs are property, not companions. And I'm like, that needs to be changed. If I ever went back to lobbying, I might change that. I just don't agree that they're property. I believe that they're these unbelievable spirits and entities and I can see how this dog has changed your life. And
Oh
so
yeah.
full circle, is Tambo here with us today?
He's here, and
Yeah.
he made it. He powered through, chemotherapy. He had his days after chemo, like any human, where he was
Hmm.
nauseous and didn't want to eat. But we used appetite
Yeah.
stimulants and anti-nausea medicine, and he powered through it. And that's when I really started documenting everything on social media, Dana, because when I first started doing it, I just wanted to peel the curtain back and show what
Yeah.
these working dogs go through
Right.
in retirement. And then something cool started happening is that it started inspiring a lot of people that were going through cancer. And when I took him for chemo, I would always take a selfie of him and I started doing these little themes. Like I did a John Cena theme where I
Mhm.
put him, a Tambo and I never give up t-shirts, and I had the towel, and
Mm.
I had him come out to John Cena's theme music. And then I did a Rocky theme, and I put him in a boxing outfit, and he came out to out the door, like, to No Easy Way Out. And I started getting this big following
Yeah.
on social media, and then people started reaching out to me and saying, hey, my dad is going through stage 4 cancer. He wanted to quit, but he sees how Tambo's fighting. He wants to continue to
Right.
fight. And then the deeper part is when a mother or father reaches out and said, my son or daughter has
Mm.
cancer, and they get joy seeing
Right.
Tambo's posts, and it gives them light in a dark time. And that really hit me deep.
Is that when you were inspired to write, um, K9 Tambo, the
Yes.
children's book? Yeah.
Yes, and
Yeah.
it was kind of two parts. So for as
Yeah.
a guy like me that grew up, without my
Yeah.
dad, and having that chip on my shoulder, and never feeling good enough, and
Yeah.
then also seeing these children that go through these things like cancer. And I wanted to write the book where a child could understand, hey, when you're going through some adversity, to not give up and continue to fight. So the gist of the story is, it talks about Tambo. It doesn't mention cancer. It just says that he gets sick and he needs medicine, but he gets better. And then he inspires children to not be scared if they're going through something hard, or not be scared to go to the doctor. And it's for any child that's sick or has ever felt small or unseen. And becoming a
Right.
father late in life, that also inspired me. So I wanted something where I could really kind of give back.
Yeah. You were saying at 47, you had your own son,
Yeah.
and come full circle, Tambo is kind of pivoted in your dad. I'm gonna let you tell this next part because that's like talk about full circle, the catalyst of you connecting, seeing, moving, hoping, believing, and wow, I'm gonna let you tell the rest. I don't want to mess this part up. I'm leaning
Yes.
in. I'm leaning in.
So again, my dad left when I was young, and we had in and out of my life. He would disappear for periods of time, and he had
Mm,
his own demons that
yeah.
that he dealt with and stuff. And him and I were never able really to fully connect. And
Mhm.
so shortly after Tambo got cancer and was going through his fight, my dad called me and said, "Hey, I just got diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma." And hit me really hard, because I was already dealing with Tambo having cancer, and then having my son brought a wave of emotions of being a father, and then everything that I didn't have that my dad didn't give me. So my dad is a very stoic man, and he never really able to connect with me. But the way we connected is he was connecting with me through Tambo. He would
Right.
start the conversation as how's Tambo doing? How's he doing with his
Mm.
treatment? How's his chemo going? When am I getting a Tambo T-shirt? Because Tambo does have his own his own
Wow.
T-shirts too. Um,
Oh, there's
but
merch. We didn't talk about that earlier.
yeah,
Am I getting merch? I
yeah,
want a Tambo t-shirt.
and
Uh,
you'll get some Tambo coffee too, because there's some Tambo coffee out there actually.
Oh, I love that. I love that. We talked about it earlier, the Netflix, the movie coming, which, I just see it all. But let's go back to your dad. So your dad, this kind of bridges communication that you never had, a connection you never had with your dad, and Tambo facilitates that too.
Yeah, and so he was connecting with me through Tambo, and through that he was able to open up about his own cancer diagnosis. And the hard part was is he was supposed to make a full recovery through this, and
Mm.
during his chemo and everything, he was in Florida, went out to visit him, got to meet my son, and it was really healing for me because I got to see him with my son, and I have some amazing pictures of them walking together and him holding him. And in a way, Dana, it kind of healed me as a little boy, that of all the things that I didn't get from him, I was almost living through my son, and
Yeah.
getting that healing, and seeing that with my dad was really healing for me. And I think it was healing for my dad as well. And we had this great visit, and I thought we had all this time left, and then he had a couple of strokes
Mm.
while he was going through chemo, and had a lot of cognitive issues. And long story short, he couldn't go through the chemo anymore, and he went into hospice. And I was able to get back out there and have a visit with him. And I told him that I forgave him, and I told him regardless of what happened, he gave me life, and he was still my hero, and that I loved him. And and he told me that he was sorry. And then for the first time in my life, he told me he was proud of me, which is something I've waited my whole life to hear from my dad. And then the last thing he had said to me is make sure that you take care of my grandson and give him the things that you and I didn't get. And then 2 weeks later, which was this past week, he passed away. Um, and
I'm so sorry for that.
so it's been a heavy week, but
Yeah.
and but I try to look at the positives, and what I say to everybody else. I look in the positives that I was able to get my closure with my dad, which is something that a lot of people don't get. And then
Yeah.
he got to meet my son, and I got to be healed in a way of seeing my dad with my son, and in a way it healed me in a lot of ways. So in some ways it's devastating, but I'm also at peace because I was able to get that before he passed away. And he was also able to see me publish the children's book before he passed away, which he was incredibly proud of me doing.
It's amazing your career in the special services. And we're not going to dive into the big in the federal government, but in what you do, I can only imagine how many lives you've saved, what important work I know you've done, and that left you still from this inner child, this boy that didn't feel worthy enough. And do you think that drove you more to achieve?
Yeah.
And
Yep. And I was talking to my mom about that, and I think that I've always tried to turn negatives and into positive. And again, I think it always, when you go through something, and I always say that, a true champion and someone that you want to lead is somebody that has had adversity and been through it and overcame it. Because some
Yeah.
people, they do really well, and the minute they hit adversity later in life, they
Yeah.
crumble. And I know what it's like to not have anything, and to be rock bottom, but also to come
Yeah.
to come back from that. And I think that's
Yeah.
what has turned me into a good leader, where I'm able to mentor people now, and to
Yeah.
use those examples to help others. But that chip on my shoulder and not feeling good enough is what's
Yeah.
driven me to be successful, in
Right.
my career.
Yeah, and I think, that's an important topic to tap on, the losses that we face in this life. There isn't anyone that's going to get out of this without having grief and loss and recovery. And it's how we move through that. And do you think what was the catalyst when you met Tambo? What do you think opened up for you? Did you feel your heart just open up? Were you more available? Did your personality change? Tell me about that what you felt in that moment when you knew this is my dog.
And you see that mirror image of yourself, and then you want to give. It's like I wanted to give him what I needed and what my mentor had given to me. And then along the way, he taught me so much. And the biggest thing of that is being more in the present, the simplicity of life, of not letting the small things derail your day. And before that, you have a stressful day at work, and you come home and you're scrolling on your phone, and my son's yelling, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy," and then, I'm
Yeah.
I'm emotionally not there, but then you can't get that time back, right? And then
Right.
when stuff like that happens, it enables you to live in the present and enjoy those moments, that you don't need materialistic things. You don't need, a ton of money to be happy. It's the simple things in life, and it's what we choose to view it. And there's this picture I've had since I was young, and it's something simple, but it's kind of like a cartoon. But it's a guy, he's on a train, and then one side of the train is very gloomy and stormy, and the other side is very sunny.
I
But
know this. I know this one. I love this image.
it's
Yeah.
it's the side that you decide to sit
Yeah.
on, is how you view life, right? and
Yeah.
and you can always find the positives and everything. Just as I was talking about with my dad, and as I could say, why is this happening? I just reconciled with him. He just met my son. But then the beautiful part is I had a dog that wasn't supposed to be here,
Yeah.
isn't supposed to be here,
And
that
it's
brought
here.
us back together, that I was able to reconcile with my father, and we were able to have this beautiful moment together, and this closure, and that's a beautiful thing. So
Yeah.
you have to have the right mindset of how to look at things in life. And I know it's hard, but and that's the biggest thing that Tambo's taught me, and
Yeah.
it's truly changed me in so many ways.
How's Tambo today?
He's doing really good. We had our 8-week oncology appointment on Monday, and I'm not getting too worried yet, but they did see, for the first time, they did see some changes on his kidney. There's some spots, but it could be from aging. So I
Yeah.
have to go back in 3 weeks and do another ultrasound, and they'll let me know. But I told he has an amazing oncology team at Blue Pearl, and we both agreed, is
Right.
like, if we know this dog and we know him, we're not writing him off. And I'm hoping
Right.
that that's not the case. And if it is, the cancer's back, we'll deal with it how we always deal with it, head on, and we'll do it together. But it's interesting because he's gotten so dependent on me through this cancer battle.
Yeah.
When he would go for his chemo, um, he wouldn't um, he wouldn't go to the back by himself. He'd put all his feet down, and I'd have to walk him back. And what I attribute it to, and it'll be in my upcoming memoir that I'm writing, because I really leaned into the Rocky theme, is like I was
Yeah.
like Apollo or Mickey, and I was walking Rocky to the back, and I was encouraging him as we were walking down this long hallway, and then he would disappear behind these double doors for his chemo. So now every time we go for his oncology, I have to walk him down. And I want to touch on one cool thing that happened during his cancer battle, is that the story, we've done a lot of podcasts and interviews, and it's gained national attention. So the Philadelphia Eagles reached out to me, earlier in last year in
Very cool.
November, and they wanted to honor Tambo and I and Project K9 Hero on Sunday Night Football. So on November 16th of 2025, um, they had us out, and we Jason, Project K9 Hero team, we got an Airbnb in Philly, and we did one cool thing before the game. Dana is we ran the Rocky Stairs, and it was so symbolic
Wow.
of Tambo's fight, being that his chemo was right
Yeah.
outside of Philly, and then I've leaned into the whole Rocky theme, and Tambo and I being underdogs, and so we ran the Rocky Stairs. We got pictures at the Rocky statue, and then night of the game, first quarter, they brought us out onto the field. 70,000 people. They talked about Tambo's service, and then talked about that a dog that was given 2 weeks to live and now fighting the biggest battle of his life with cancer. And we got a standing ovation from 70,000 people, which was a goosebump moment, for a full circle moment for two people that weren't supposed to be there, standing on this field under a national spotlight.
And a dog that's bipartisan. Two
Yeah.
presidential elections, which
Yeah.
we don't know if he was like on both sides, but he's there to serve. I love the diplomacy. I love the service. I love everything about the story. I can't wait to see how this unfolds. I can't wait to watch the movie, which I know we're going to see on Netflix. I just know it. I know it sooner than later. And I
that
can't wait for
that's
your memoirs and the second series in the book. Isn't it interesting? Did you think before you met Tambo that any of this was going to happen in your life?
No, I didn't. And I had an amazing bond with my first two dogs, Rex and Tina.
Yeah,
And when I would have never thought that the it would have been Tambo, that this incredible bond bigger than those two would have happened, and how this would have unfolded, and how many lives he's impacted. And for if you really want rewind back, the dog that nobody really wanted on the team, and now he's turned into this symbol of hope on a national stage. And again, I always say that every dog has a story to tell, regardless if it's a working dog or
yeah,
a pet. They all have their unique personalities, and they all have a story to tell, and they all have the ability to impact people's lives. So yeah, the adult memoir, I'm pretty much finished that. I'm working on publishing right now. I want to make sure I have the right marketing to get
yeah,
the story out, and then, as I stated earlier, the main goal after that is to get the story to film at some point. So we're been talking to some
yeah,
people about some
yeah.
opportunities with that, and that will be
It's
the
huge.
the end goal. And again, it's not about notoriety for myself. I just feel like it's a story. It's a beautiful story, and it's a story of
Yeah,
hope, resilience, loss, and a story of a father and son. And I think
yeah,
that in a world where so much chaos is going on, I just want to bring some positivity and a good
yeah.
story
A-
to
And you're in
people.
the heart of it. I mean, there you are
Yeah,
working in the heart of the political machine and law enforcement and special agents. And here you find this dog that nobody wants. And it just, I mean, it just blows another world wide open and that's available to you. I love this story so much because I think that we can all be on a trajectory and we don't know what's next. And people always want to know what's next. And I'm like, that's not our business to know what's next. If we can be consistent, like you said, I stayed consistent. I went, I fed him. He's still in a routine. We have to be consistent, but
yeah,
people, when they're not getting what they need, they bail or they're like, they don't connect instantly. It's a sign. We got to show up and we have to recognize it was a sign. You looked into that dog's eyes and the sign was, I recognize something there. And
yeah,
it's a beautiful story. Thank
yeah.
you for showing up today and sharing this with us.
No, thank you so much for having me, and it's always an honor to be able to share, Tambo's story on these platforms, and
Yeah,
and bring light to that when these working dogs retire,
yeah,
their story doesn't end, right? And
right.
a lot of times that's when they really need us the most, and they still have something to give, even in
Mm.
retirement and after years of serving our country and our communities.
I think that we don't cognitively think about that. We see the dogs out there. There's so many of those TV shows now that have the working dog with the officer out there. What are those shows
Mhm.
called? Cops, or
Yeah.
maybe that was a long time ago. There's new ones. I'm sure reality TV is so big right now,
Hmm.
and you watch them out there, but you never think about what happens to them when they're not, and they're no longer working. And
Yeah. And I kind of correlate it to like NFL athletes, as they're these prime athletes, and
yeah, and
they
all this
put
focus.
so much on their body through their career, and
Yeah,
then when they retire, that's when a lot of the health issues happen, and it's to
yeah,
no fault of any of the departments. There's just nothing set
yeah.
up for the dogs funding wise in retirement, and that's something that Project
Mm.
K9 Hero is working on to get
Oh, I love
legislation
that emphasis.
passed to get funding set up for these working dogs when they retire. Just like us as humans, we have retirement, healthcare. These dogs don't have anything, and that burden of cost, falls on the handler. And I always say
Yeah.
that no handler should ever be in a position for a dog that served our country and community to have to make a decision, on these dogs based on finances.
Oh, I agree, but I agree with that across the board. I don't think that should ever depict whether people get help or not, but that's
Yes,
just, you
yes.
know, that's where we are right now. So, a question. Are you going to get another dog to work with? I know Tambo's retired, but are you thinking of,
Oh man.
or is that like, do you feel like you'd be cheating?
So I once Tambo retired, we had such an amazing career. I moved up to a key leadership position, and I wanted my canine career to end with Tambo,
Ah,
and that was symbolic. I out of my 24 years, 17 have been spent on canine. Retired three amazing dogs that have had amazing careers, and now I'm focusing on leadership and stuff. Canine's always going to be my passion, and when I retire, I'm
yeah,
definitely going to jump back into the canine field in the private world at some point.
right.
So it's not the end, but as far as where I'm at right now, probably
Mhm.
won't be getting another dog.
Another
But
dog.
in some ways, I'm at peace with that, because this story
Yeah,
with Tambo, I think it's symbolic that it ends with
yeah.
him.
I love that. I love that. So, okay. So we don't know what's next, which is I can't wait to hear that. But where can people find the children's book?
So it's available on Barnes and Noble, and it's available on Amazon if you just type in K9 Tambo. I'm in the Maryland area, so it's going to be carried locally, and a lot of the in my town that I live in, and a lot of the Barnes and Nobles here locally. I've already got book signings and readings for children set up in the next few
Mhm.
months, which is I'm pretty excited about. And as long as
Nice.
Tambo's health is still good, I'll bring him with me, and be really, and to bring my son and to read to children and to share that story with them. It'd be really really special for me. So, but it's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And if anyone wants to find me on social media, you can find me on Instagram at lowercase k the number nine
Yeah.
underscore Tambo. And then
Yeah.
I will have a website up soon for Tambo that's coming.
Yeah. K9 Tambo. Wow. You know what,
Yeah.
Chris, thank you for being here today. Is there anything I never looked down at 4 pages of questions because I was just so entranced by the story. It's so heartfelt and led. And I always say, what feels like love in your life? Hey, what does I always end with that question, but I can kind of tell what feels like love in your life. What feels like love in your life right now?
is is hope, and having the people that are important surrounding me, and having the right people in my life, and being able to have that time with my dad, and have this time with Tambo, and savoring that time. And then also, what love looks like now is paying that forward to other people and inspiring other people that are going through tough times,
Yeah.
that we can continue to get through this, and you just need to have hope, because I think that I've given Tambo so much credit, and somebody was telling me the other day, is they're like, Chris, you got to give yourself credit because your
I was
pup.
just going to say that. I'm looking at this polished career, this
Yeah,
unbelievable career you have,
yeah,
and you pivoted you led with your heart. You went to
yeah,
where the healing, and that's where the healing, the expansion happens. Your ego would have just continued to drive you over here. And I love the balance. I always say there's got to be a yin and a yang. It's got to be a balance. And it's a beautiful story. I can't wait to see how it unfolds. I'd love
Yep.
to have you back and have an update. Uh,
Yeah.
it just, your story, I think, is just beginning again.
Yeah, I always tell people we're just getting started, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna continue being an advocate for our country's working dogs in retirement. I'm gonna continue to put stuff out to inspire other people, and I think that that's what my calling was meant to be, and I'm gonna continue to share Tambo's story with other
Right.
people, and as many times as possible to put some positivity back out in the world.
Chris Bingham, thank you. Thank you for your story. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for the book. Can't wait for the movie. And for all my listeners, you're going to want to tape this, listen to it again. I was mesmerized by a couple parts of this that I'm going to go back and listen to. I don't normally do that. But like I said yes to this podcast prior to even meeting you. We had a nice talk and unfolded today. It was just like my heart just lit up with the story. So thank you for showing
Thank you
up.
so much.
Thank you for your service. Thank you for everything that you do, in your business, in your career. But what you're doing now it's huge. It's what the world needs. So both of it. Thank you for all of it. From all of us, we're going to say goodbye. And thank you for showing up today on the Dana Grant Show. And Chris, you heard it here. Chris said he's going to come back for a second interview. All
And
right, everyone.
I'll have Tambo with me next
And
time.
Tambo, we might do that soon. We might do like a part two because
Yeah.
I can't wait for that. Tambo's normally sitting behind him. So everyone, thank you for showing up today and bye for now.